Hi there, Dave here with the latest version of our Flight Log 2 project. And in this version, we finally have the site report working with our array of saved strings. So we're just saving the raw data, and then we're going to make a report about it. And so this video is basically about how that report works. And I put it into this version. So this is the one called C. That's the code that we wrote in class, is the C version of it, which is based on the B version. Well, going back to our design, here's what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to accomplish this report. And so we're coming up with a generalized way of doing that. Now we loaded this data into the input array before we started the menu actually, and so we can just run the report whenever we want. Well, Chris gave us the picture that we drew on the board, so I put it here, and this shows us the logic of the whole program. We spent some time doing this in class, and I'm not going to go over the whole thing here, but I wanted to show you that this picture is here, and what we do is we just have our constants up here, and then we have main, and inside of main we have our flights, and then we execute add sites automatically, and then add test flights, and then we do display menu items, then we input what to do, and then we decide, depending upon the value of what to do one of these functions. One was display all sites, the next one was add new site, etc. And we're going to do this loop as long as the user doesn't enter X. And the key to this pattern, of course, is down at the bottom of the inner loop we get the next input. So we get the input at the top of the loop right here. We get the first input, and if the user wants us to do something, then we do it. And then at the bottom of this loop, we ask again whether we should do it again. And so I did this, and I even talked about this already, this particular piece of code. Here is the menu items, and here it is in code. We display, we get what to do, and then when we say if what to do is not X, then we go ahead and print this thing, and then we get it again. And that's exactly the same thing we do in our program. So when we take a look at the code, we find that run site report, our menu is right here, and it is the same logic as this menu, except what to do in here is a little bit more complicated. So what to do here, we ask if it's a 1, do this, if it's 2. So this is the only difference between the code that we saw in the simple menu and the one that we just did in class. And so what we're going to concentrate on is run site report. That's really the focus of the class and the video. So we have a picture of it too. Thank you, Chris. And so here is the site report logic. There it is. And so what it says to do is it says to set the grand totals, that's the grand total count up at the top, to set that equal to 0 in here. It happens that the column, and what I'm talking about is the picture here, The column in which grand total is printed is down here. It's printed down here after we do everything that needs to be done to get the grand totals. So in the column in which the grand totals are printed, they are at the top set to 0. And that pattern is followed. So that in the center column, which does sites, this is where we do site, we have our site totals, and they're set to 0 in the column in which they're printed. They're printed right there. And another pattern is that in the column to the right of where these totals are displayed, they are added to. So the grand total is added to the column to the right, one column to the right. Notice that grand totals are added to by the site totals. And the site totals are created in the next column over. Notice that site count is added to, and site count here is before we get the next record. And notice that the next data is always gotten at the bottom of the innermost loop. So we get data, the first at the top of the report to see if we got any data. Then we do all the things that need to be done. And then at the bottom we get the next record. So the pattern is that we're going to come in and do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this at least once. If we have one piece of data, we're going to do that sequence. Again, we're going to come in here, then we're going to go down here, and then we're going to go down here if we have one. If that's all we have, if we just have one, we read it, that's it, we go to read the next one, it's not there, then what we're going to do is we're going to say, oh, there are no more, so I'm going to do this logic down here, and then I'm going to come over to the sites, and there are no more sites, so I'm going to do that. So depending upon how ending we are, look, I just ended all the data. If I ended the data, certainly I ended the site information, as well as ended the whole report. That makes sense. So if I didn't get any data here, I'm going to do what it says to do at the end of the site, and then I'm going to do certainly what it says to do at the end of the report, because I'm all done. And there's the logic. Now, I tried to say that logic again here. So right above the report, there's the report. So I tried in the pseudocode up here to describe what was being done down here, not just rewrite the pseudocode, just not rewrite the code. So rather than just rewrite the code in this pseudocode version of this, I actually wrote down what was happening. So look in the beginning column. The beginning column means everything it is indented. This is the next column. This is the site stuff is indented once. This is the grand total stuff on the outside. So notice that we initialize the grand totals. We display the headings. Yeah, we get the first data. And notice that following my pattern, I said we get the next at the innermost, the bottom of the innermost loop. Sure enough, there's the first one, there's the second one. Now we just follow our rules. So get the first record. Is it there? If there is something there, look, if there's nothing there, it's just going to display the grand totals, which is 0. If there is something there, then initialize the site totals and remember which site it is, so that when we go to a different site or we run into the end of the data, that we'll know that we're supposed to take and do whatever's supposed to be done at the end. So while there is data and nothing has changed, then go ahead and just add to that site, add to that site, add to the site. Get the site total stuff. And of course, at the bottom of that inner loop, get the next record so that we know that we should continue, or we should, in fact, we're done with that site. So we come down and display the site information, right? Because we've now accumulated the totals and the count for that site so that we can in fact display that line, add to the grand totals, keep doing the sites until we're all done with them, then we display the grand totals. Take care.